So I'm going to try to demonstrate how to get a bearing off a crank using just heat and a screwdriver. Nope. Nope. Fail. Went down to Harbor Freight, got myself a bearing puller set, because I can't get those things off with just heat. So let's see if this works. With a 25% off coupon, this was $35 roughly. I think I know how to use this. We'll see. So I gotta get that in there pretty good. And you probably want the shortest ones possible. That way there's as little play as possible. Center it. And run it, I guess. Ta-da! Boy, that was a whole lot easier. Put that down, let it cool. We'll flip this over to the other side. Other side seems ready to go. Let's see if I can just undo these screws a little bit here. These nuts. Bring that out a little. And cinch it on down. Then it's mostly ready to go anyway. Keeping with the power tool theme. Probably that. This. needs to be centered. Let's try it with no heat and see what happens here. So no heat. I'm going to use the impact just to drive it, but that worked too. No heat at all. Now, I don't know for sure if those bearings were shot, but they certainly look cooked to me. So I'm going to just put new in. Don't know what else I'm going to do yet. I have another part saw coming in, so I'm going to start dismantling that. And hopefully soon we're going to get to start putting this project back together. In case anyone's interested, I happen to have a triangular file that I just jammed inside here. So I can actually get out the worm gear. There. By the way, I've got another part saw right here, so I'm going to take that apart too. And then we'll start the reassembly. Gotta get some bearings first. Gonna look and see what options I have for bearings. I believe the number is 6202, and you want open bearings, C3, ABEC 3 bearings. Just wanted to show something interesting. The squish on this other saw is about 41 thousandths. So the other one was 42, which means that between saws, that's pretty accurate, I'd say, or at least consistent. So 42 thousandths. Just wanted to show that this oiler system is a little bit different than the other one that I took apart. This is a little newer, actually, with the plastic pinion here, with the 4 grabby thingies that grab onto the clutch drum. So this one doesn't seem that worn, like, at all, which is interesting. The saw is dirty as all heck, but overall the internals look pretty clean. So I wonder what happened to it. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, just figured I'd show you what the this whole thing actually looks like here. Goes together pretty normally otherwise. So on the other saw, I actually have a new oiler pinion, and I will be using that. So the order here is this plastic pinion, and then looks like this rim, the clutch drum, don't forget the needle bearing, and then there's a big washer on the inside here, and then you put the clutch on after that. So hope you guys can see that on the video here. Of note, the ignition coil bolts look like they're smaller than M5. They might be M4. Just something to consider. Epic fail. Oops. So this is what happens when you forget one last bolt, namely this one here, which is actually pretty much the main bolt holding everything together here, or at least the front end. So I cracked the case, but I really broke it, like busted. So I'm gonna have to get a new case half here. Just adds to the expensivity of this project. Great. Well, here's what's not to do. So you got to make sure you get all the bolts. 4 here, 1 here, the 2 on the front, which I forgot before, and thank goodness found. But I forgot that one and this go around. Shucks. It's okay. Not that big a deal. I feel bad, but oh well. I'm going to apologize in advance for this. I did not get video of me putting this case back together. I just didn't click the button. Sorry. But anyway, obviously I'm not going to click it now. Or try to go back, rather. So this case is not a whole lot different from any other one that I've done. But I will say that I did mess one of these cases up by forgetting to pull a one of the actual bolts. So just to count the bolts so everybody knows how many there are, there's one at the back. There's one at the back of the chassis here. This is actually kind of a short bolt, about 1 inch long. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's a 5th down in here, which is the one I missed. And then 2 at the front. The 2 at the front are fairly long. These 5, I believe, match. So, what I did on this one that was at least slightly different from the other was the bearing on the flywheel side actually can go completely free in and out. So as I was pulling the case halves together, as I was cinching everything down, the bearing can actually freely move in the chassis. So there's no stop to it. On the PTO side, there is a stop. You can just jam the bearing all the way in, drop the crank on. Well, here, if the crank isn't super, super cold, then it does not want to go on. So the bearing will tend to bind on the crank, and the bearing will tend to actually move up and out. So I had to keep heating it and then use a relatively large deep socket to knock it back. Alright, so let's assume the case is back together. I've done my Loctite 515 on the seal, and now the case is cinched and back together. Everything's tight. Double checked with a T-handle with blue Loctite on all these. Goes a little further. Goes a little further. Good. Gotta go back and check. Because there's some tighten, others loosen. There we have it. So now you have a case that is back together. I'm going to put a piston and cylinder on here, and we're going to measure squish and all that other fun stuff. We've already done that to another one, but that's kind of the putting the case back together part of this. So if anybody wants tips and tricks, that's that. Good. So I think I got it. We got we're indicating the base here. Where are we at there?
38, 36, 38, 39, 40.
Only a few thousandths off that way. Not too bad. Let's go a little more. How about front to back? How are we doing?
Pretty even. 40. Pretty much dead on. 38, 39. I'd say run it.
How far are we off here?
36.
Yeah, leave it. That's good. So we're not more than a couple thou off this way. So we're going to run this. We're going to cut this plate down. I still have to decide exactly how much I'm taking off, but our squish is 42 thousandths. So if we want to optimize the squish with a standard piston, we're going to go down 22 thousandths. If we want to do a pop-up, we go down more. So
Punch it.
punch it. So let's take 22 thousandths off, but let's go. I gotta find 0 first here. Oh, just touched. So I'm gonna stop that. Let's see if I'm cutting here. Not quite. Raise the table by 1,000 or 2.
Raises.
Sorry. Oh, too much. Back it down. Still cutting. Back it down a little bit. Still cutting. Back it down a little bit. That's it. Alright. So now let's find a... Now we're going to set this to 0. Here's our 0. And we're going to go up 22 thousandths. Should start cutting. $22. Wait a minute. Is that the mark? That's the mark. $22. Putty there, just making sure we're not getting chips in the bearings. On the 262 XP. I'm going to put the gasket down, put an OEM piston on, which is over here, put the OEM cylinder on, check squish, and check some timing numbers and see where we go there. I'm putting the cylinder down with 2 bolts. Cylinder's down with 2 bolts with a gasket. Now we're going to check squish. Check the squish. The aim is 20 thousandths. Looks pretty good to me. Right on the money. Should get some nice compression out of that. Let's see if we can get some timing numbers. I'm going to cinch the inner one up to the crank first. This is loose. So let's go to 55 there. We're going to go around to the other side. Okay, split the difference. 5 and 55. So now we have to go to 5 and 55, 50 minus 25, so 30. Come around the other side. I didn't split it far enough. Let's keep going. There's 20. And that is 27. Back this off a few. Let's aim for 23. 24. Just tweak it so it's the same on both sides. Three and a half. 23 and a half. So I've got a mark here, and this is just by eye anyway. So for what I'm doing, this is going to be close enough. So now we have the piston at top dead center. There it is. There's our degree wheel. We're all set up. Good. So let's double check just for giggles. So on that side it reads 45, 46, 47, 48. Go around the other side. 48. That's it. We're good. So there's our double check. Again, this just gets in there at kind of an arbitrary kind of a spot. Exhaust is at 103 on the 262, which I might just keep it there. That sounds just fine to me. Let's check the intake and the transfers. Intake seems to be about 70, intake seems to be about 68. Seems a little bit low to me. Should be aiming for closer to 80, which means it's not taking a big enough gulp of air. Check the transfers. Transfers are at 90, 100, 110, 120, 125. So the blowdown on this right now, 125 to 103, is about 22. Might want to lower the transfers just a shade, and then we'll have it. Gonna post the numbers online, see what the guys think. Timing numbers. So I said I'd figure out what timing numbers to use. It's not me that figured it out. According to Mastermind on Arborist's site, I want the transfers at about 118. I'm going to keep the exhaust where it is at 103. And my intake will get raised from 68 to 72. Or lowered to 72. So, in order to do that, I need to actually take the jug off. Yeah, the intake's about 68. Maybe I'm just going to mark it. You know what? I'm just going to mark it. So that's 72 right there. And now I'm going to mark the piston skirt. In there, I'm just going to take a Sharpie and I'm going to mark the piston skirt, which will give me an idea of exactly how much I need to remove. Not on the skirt, but on the actual intake itself. I'll be able to gauge that. The other thing I need to do is I need to remove the cylinder here. I'm going to go down to bottom dead center, remove the cylinder. I'm going to put an old ring in here, and then I'm going to raise this up to where I want the transfer ports. In this case, it's going to be 118. So once I raise it to 118, I'll pull the head off again, mark it, and you'll see where we go from there. Just 2 cylinder head bolts. So I've got a mark on the piston. Let's see if I can bring this in so you can actually see it. Yeah, so you can see the line there. I'll have to measure exactly how much that is, but that'll be how much to remove on the floor of the intake there. Now let's take the ring off. This ring is going to get changed anyway. I'm going to polish up the piston and we'll change out the ring. The ring is going to go inside the cylinder itself, and then we're going to have this at roughly bottom dead center, just for ease here. We're going to seat this. We're going to do a couple of cylinder head bolts, just 2. They do not need to be down super tight. Second cylinder head bolt. Now again, I'm doing this with a gasket because I've gotten a squish that I want with the gasket by machining the chassis. You do have to measure this with a gasket, at least in this case, or at least however you're going to, if you're doing a gasket delete, you're going to have to measure it with the gasket delete. So then you raise this up to, in this case, 118. So 90, 100, 110, 120. So you just slowly raise it. There's 110, 120, 119, 118. Now I can back this off, go back in, undo the cylinder head bolts, and now in here there's a ring and it's at the proper height. Let's see if I can really show this good to you. So you can see, let's see, right about there, you can see where the transfer port is and where the ring is. And the difference between the two is where you grind to. Simple. So now I'm going to make a mark with a Sharpie, and that is going to give me an idea of where I cut to. So I need to make the Sharpie, in this case, disappear. Make the black there disappear. I really don't have to lower the floor of the intake much. Won't be any thicker than a line with a Sharpie. So I'll hog out the exhaust, but I don't want to change it at all. That's about that on this guy. So I'm going to do the machining in the dental office, and then I'll put the whole thing back together for you and run it.